the prospect of other tunnels will, because I am a normal, well, I don't say normal, because I am a sexually active and sexually motivated man, yes, the idea of other tunnels is appealing.
And I wouldn't even say man, I'd say person.
Person, well, I'm just speaking from my own experience, is always going to be appealing. And my wife understands that. Like, we're not one of those couples that the idea or even a conversation about being attracted to someone else. I mean, hell, I dressed up like Jason Momoa for her birthday because she is sexually attracted to Jason Momoa. And I know that, I get that, I appreciate that, and my way of responding to that was to become Jason Momoa for her birthday, right?
I thought it was funny. I didn't, I played up in the video that I was like, I can't believe that I'm the wingman in this thing. It's like, this is ridiculous because it's funny. I will say in the past, like years before that, maybe decades earlier, I would feel uncomfortable when you and Jesse would talk openly about your like celebrity crushes, for example, or saying things in conversation about how hot you thought somebody else was. Mm-hmm. I came to realize that for me, some of that discomfort was, well, first of all, I'd realized that would translate into judgment of you. But that was really, I came to realize, a defense mechanism covering up the root of my response, which was tied into abandonment issues and security issues. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't want to, if Christy brought up something, it might trigger in me an insecurity that like, oh, she made a joke about Keith Urban, and I'm like, does that scare me? Does that threaten me? Does that tap into something deep inside of me that like, just an honest statement about acknowledging that somebody's attractive all of a sudden means a whole lot to me. But exploring it leads to growth. So I think I've been a little envious that you could speak openly about that because you didn't have that hang up, but it brings up something that I actually do need to work. If abandonment issues is something that I am working on, but it takes acknowledging that. So, and it happened within that process a little bit. Of course, a lot of other things too. Right. Getting to a point where you can have open conversations, we can be honest about, within the context of your relationship, about like the human feelings, desires, and urges you have, but then like acknowledging that and then saying, but this is what I'm doing because I love and prioritize you, and this is what the decisions we've made as a couple. It's very rewarding to have those conversations. It's difficult and it's scary, but it's better than just keeping it to yourself and then your partner's walking on eggshells about things.
Yeah.
So
in that sacrifice, there is because I think the old Rhett who is listening to the new Rhett would be like, oh, he's setting himself up to be able to do whatever the he wants to do, right?
Mm-hmm. Literally.
That is not the case. It's moving to the health framework. Like I said, it can be a little bit more complicated and complex because it varies from person to person. That's one of the biggest shifts that's happened as my worldview has changed. Moving from a place where you believe there is an objective morality that applies to everyone in every circumstance, and it's a one size fits all, to understanding that individual decisions, and this is more of a postmodern way of thinking about things, but you are a specific person with a specific perspective in a specific place and time. And what's most healthy for you is not gonna be the same as it was for somebody else at a different place and time. And I just think that the idea that doesn't mean that now you do whatever you want to, because I'm in the context of a relationship with Jessie and I don't get to do whatever I want to do, right? She doesn't get to do whatever she wants to do because we are in a relationship that involves commitment and compromise, right? You don't just get to be like, I have a desire, therefore I go and fulfill it, and that's the end of the story. It's like, no, everyone has desires that you need to keep in check, and that might be understood and explained in a religious context for a lot of people, but that is just that's how human That's how civilization functions, is by there being cooperation and compromise. So ultimately, the idea of like, I've got this thing that, oh, this seems like it would be fun, but would it be best? Would this be good for me? Would this be good for us? Like
right.
that, and what kind of to piggyback off of what you're saying, bringing those things out into the open and being like, well, this actually does seem fun to me, or this, I'm interested in this, having that conversation as a couple so you can at least acknowledge it, so it's not just something that's festering and growing on one side of the relationship and then somebody breaks it out and says, I wanna do this. And you're like, well, I wasn't ready for this, and you've already committed to it in your mind and there's no coming back from it. That's a problem. And that will, and I think that's why so often in the relationships that I've seen where people have tried to sort of redefine the nature of their relationship, they haven't ended well because the communication broke down at an early stage or the compromise ended at some point.